Hello. In the series entitled The Law of Karma, Destiny and Choice, we have been taking up various subjects, and today we will be looking at the all-important topic entitled What is the Power of God? Many of you may have wondered what role God plays in the karma of the world, the karma of your family, loved ones, but more importantly, your own karmic debt. So I have the pleasure of interviewing Sister Denise from the Brahma Kumaris on this beautiful subject of one's relationship with the divine. Hello, and it's great to have you back with us in the studio.
Hello, Magla. Thank you so much.
Throughout this series, we have taken up the name of the divine. We have looked at God from various angles. But today we will be focusing primarily on what God's role is as far as the individual is concerned, specifically with reference to the law of karma.
Many people, they reject the concept of the law of karma because they believe that God is the one who rewards and punishes. And if the law of karma is the one that rewards and punishes, then it makes God redundant, and they are very antagonistic to that.
Okay, so God is someone, and the law of karma is something.
Yes.
And the two are separate energies.
Absolutely separate.
Okay, someone, something, God, law of karma.
God knows the law of karma very accurately, and God is described as the ocean of knowledge. One thing that is said is that knowledge is power, and one way in which we can describe the power of God is that He knows the law of karma accurately, and in comparison, the human beings know the law of karma very inaccurately and consequently violate it time and time again. We also need to look at the question, if God is not responsible for reward and punishment, then what does God do? God describes His primary function as to give information, and together with that, to purify. The function of purifying matter and the souls is a very deep one, and this is really the power of God, and it's very subtle, practically incomprehensible, but let us try to describe this because it will be very helpful to people to understand it.
Although God and the law of karma are separate, somewhere, somehow, there's an intersection, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Tell us how that unfolds, because that is the cause of confusion for many. I know scores of people who are grateful to God when they get what they want, but on the other hand ask, why did God take this one or this thing away from me when they experience a loss?
Well, this is the thing. They think that God is responsible for punishment and reward, but in reality, punishment and reward happens automatically because the law of karma is an automatic thing. But let's look at this interface that you were asking about. There is a spiritual law, which most people don't know about, but it's a very important law. A spiritual law which says that you only remember God when you are in sorrow or trouble. Negative karma causes a person to turn to God.
Is that love or is that desperation?
Either way, it does the trick.
So if we're happy, we ignore God?
Yes? You don't think about God, you don't need God.
The mechanism of sorrow is there, so that we call out for help?
Well, no, so that you make connection with God.
Okay.
That means God is not required in heaven, but definitely required in hell.
Are we in hell, Sister Denise?
Most people would say so. They say, my life is hell, my wife is hell, my situation is hell.
That was funny. That was funny. Okay, so this is hell?
For so many people. You're a refugee, your native land has been taken away by a corporation who wants to mine there. They just push you out. You're caught in the crossfire of some war. You lose your job. For large numbers of people, they're in hell. They may be diseased, they may be impoverished, they may be wrongfully imprisoned. I don't know. There's all sorts of situations which people are in that they call hell. 1% of the population owns 97% of the world's wealth, so the other 99% have to manage with 3%, and that may be very difficult and challenging.
We are aware of our karmic burdens because they're pretty obvious. And we then engage with God to alleviate the burden.
The main thing that's important about this point is that a person has a karmic debt, a person has been contaminated and corrupted by negative action, and there is no way that they can be free from it except by their interaction with God. And so this is where the power of God comes in. So it's not that God supplies the person with punishment or reward. That's a different thing. That happens automatically. When you connect with God, you pull the energy of God into yourself. And this is really the power of God that's going on. So God will allow you to take that energy. And the energy that you're taking causes you to be able to alter the situation in your consciousness such that negative karma that you would ordinarily do under frequently experienced provocations, you have the power to not do it. This is the power of God, and there's more to it.
Why does God intervene?
Love.
That feels so good to hear that.
Yeah.
Got that? Love.
If somebody's in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what is needed to take them out of that trouble, what motivates you to give them what they need is your love, your compassion, your mercy, your interest that that person should come out of that situation. But God is the only being, the only energy that can do that. You can't get it any other way. Even if you seriously suffer for some negative karma that you do, to the point of eliminating that karmic debt altogether, you haven't changed your sanskara.
What you mean by that is the trait, the character trait that got you into the bog in the first place.
It's still there. And it will activate again, and you'll do that thing again, and you'll suffer again. And you want to come out of that hamster wheel. And so when you have the encounter with God, and you have to also study with God, because God will inform you, this is how the law of karma works. Pay attention. And plus, take power from me, take light. It's like electricity in a sort of way. Electricity is used in technology and normal everyday life for light, for heat, for cooling, for refrigeration, for making motors turn, for heating, cooling. Many things make your computer work, make your microphone work, make your television work. All of these things require power to work. In the same way, for the human conscience to work, for the human will to work, you require power, because the reason why anybody succumbs to negativity is not because they're bad, it's only because they're weak. So the power of God is needed by a weak human. And the weak human who takes the power of God along with instructions has the possibility to neutralize the tendency to repeat that negative karma. So when you pull the power of God into your being, you can change your patterns. Then you see how the law of karma operates, punishment, reward, but how God operates is He gives you the power, so you decide what you're going to do, and gives you the power to make a decision that corresponds with what you know, and what your conscience says, and what your higher feelings also say. So these three get to be activated. This is the power of God. And this is also the love of God.
What happens to your karmic debt once you connect with God?
Gets eroded. Do you remember there was another episode in which I mentioned that if you come to God with no ego at all, and you say to God, okay, this is what the situation is, this is what I've done, half of it gets finished. So God has the power to cut half of your karma.
Our frenemy, ego, that's a word coined in today's world that is a combination of friend and enemy. Ego, our frenemy, ego, blocks one's relationship with God?
Yeah, so we'd call it a false friend. Another attribute of this law, which says it's only when you're in extreme sorrow that you're in any way ready to drop your ego. And then you turn to God, and then God will give you what you need in terms of the power, the peace, the relief, the companionship. There's so many different elements included in this like zap that you get from God, which is like an energy focused right on your soul, almost like a kind of cosmic laser surgery. When you're focused on God, your thought is all parallel, not radiant. Yeah? So you go straight to God focused, and you draw that energy in, and it alters your resonance. It alters how you feel about things. We are so influenced by sense perception, and all our emotions are triggered by these sense perceptions, negative emotions. You have a connection with God, that stops happening right away, and you start to experience resonance with God and all of the qualities of God, which are completely the opposite of your trials and tribulations. And you also get a feeling of I can instead of I give up. So God has this power to get you up and stand you on your feet and get you going, and will not do your work for you, but will give you whatever you need to get your work done, and will be with you, accompany you, stand beside you, stand behind you, is always there as a friend. Ego is not your friend. God is definitely your friend.
What does one do then to make this connection with the Supreme Soul real and workable for oneself? I ask this question bearing in mind that for many, concentration is next to impossible, and one's mind is all over the place. Some are willing but not able. How does one draw?
When a person falls in love, they only have eyes for that person. Their mind goes only to that person, and they locked on because of being enchanted by love. Now, once you have experienced connection with God, it's enough to make you fall in love. And the thing is to nurture that love. Because falling in love is like a zap. And it binds you like electrically to someone. But it will fade unless you nurture it. And so you need to nurture your connection with God through study, through practice, through building a relationship and including God in every part of your life. If we're talking about God here in this conversation, you can understand that it's drawing the attention of God, and God will be kind of with us in this, and sometimes you can feel it, right?
Yeah.
These are the ways to bring God in, and then you have that energy around you, which gives you an extra power to deal with this dark energy that's always trying to interfere with your life.
How do you structure your life in such a way that you take maximum benefit from your relationship with the Supreme?
If you use the particular times of day for the things that those times are suited for, it's a good structure. And in ancient Indian awareness or philosophy, they divide the day into sections that are roughly 2 hours long. And so there are certain periods where it's like negative energy. So it is said those times it's better to rest. So that comes from about 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So those are 2 good times of the day to sleep. So it's good to have a siesta in the day.
Doesn't quite fit into the schedule of those of us who are employed. But go on.
Not necessarily, because there are, like if you go to France, everybody has a 2-hour lunch break. In Spanish-speaking countries, Latin America, siesta is sacred. But the Northern European workaholics don't.
I don't know if it exists in Africa either.
In India, definitely. The most powerful time for intellectual work, for spiritual work, is from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m.
What is it about that part of the day that makes it so powerful? When most individuals are fast asleep.
Yeah, they're missing the morning chorus of the birds. They understand there's something good about the morning. They sing. The sun is rising. The air has changed from carbon dioxide to oxygen at that time. The trees put out carbon dioxide during the night, and they start putting out oxygen at daybreak. And so this is very good for your brain. The energy of the vast hordes of people who are sleeping, which may be very busy energy or maybe quite negative energy, that's quiet because they're sleeping. So you are in a very good time to do this kind of work. And then later in the day it's very good to work for your living or whatever your duties are. And if you make a schedule like that, and maybe at the end of the working day, which is the time of dusk, is traditionally considered as a very good time for meditation. Sunset, people love the sunset, right? And the sunset, you go for a walk, you become introverted, you see that beautiful color of the sky and the change, and you become a little bit connected to something more cosmic than the day-to-day stuff. So if you can try to schedule your life that it fits with the cycles of nature, it's very beneficial, you know. But so many people in the urban world, they are disconnected from nature, so that they miss out on that, you know. And this also drains their energy.
How do I know that my connection with God is real?
You'll know. If there is someone who is of a certain resonance that you have recognized, you'll know when you're in touch with that or you're not. You know, when I'm manually syncing up the audio tracks of our television recordings, the audio tracks, when they're off, you can feel. And as soon as they're right, immediately you know. And it's just one little, fraction of a millimeter. When you're tuning a musical instrument, you know when you get that note that's the right note, because, it's absolute harmony. And you have a mechanism inside your brain, I suppose, which can pick it up. And I think in meditation, you will activate a kind of resonance that when you're with God, you can feel it, you know.
What is the individual's responsibility here in respect of one's relationship with God?
To be honest, there are very few people who can have a direct contact with God.
Why?
Sometimes it is said, if you're a mystic, you can do that. Most people are too gross.
Gross meaning sensorial.
Bound to matter, bound to the physical.
So if you want to connect with God, you have to be free from the awareness or consciousness of the body.
Yeah, well, you have to be easily able to go beyond it. Some people can naturally do that. Some people are naturally have a potential for developing themselves spiritually more than others. And if a person practices purity and meditation and you get good at being in contact, you will be a rare person. And your responsibility is to be a conduit between God and those people who can't have a direct connection with God. If you take, for example, some of the teachings of Christianity, it says, through Jesus Christ you connect with God. Because it's assumed that you need a person, a tangible person, to do that, because God is non-human. How many human beings can have an interaction with a non-human that's higher than a human? Some people, they can communicate well with animals, some can't, because there is consciousness in animals, but some people think animals are objects, don't have souls. They do. To connect with a soul who is higher than a human soul is out of range for most people. So to be able to connect with God directly is generally considered heretic, but it is possible. And so they use the word mystic for someone like that. There are not that many mystics. But the purpose of a mystic, or someone who really does have love for God, connection with God, could even be a very simple person. You don't have to be a super intellectual, theological, whatnot. You can just be simply having God in your heart, and you can have that connection. But you're still a conduit between God and the people who can't connect directly, because you receive the energy of God, and your duty is to spread it vibrationally, put it in the atmosphere, because whatever atmosphere, whatever vibration is in the atmosphere, it affects people's minds and hearts. So you can do that. That's your responsibility. Because what is a dark force? The negative energy. It's the collective accumulation of everyone's negative thoughts, feelings, words, actions. That's gigantic. And the force of God is equal. And if you become a conduit for that, you make it greater than the dark force. That's a good responsibility.
Indeed, it is. We have to say goodbye to you right now. Thank you. So there you go. One's relationship with the Supreme Soul. Whether you're a heart person or a head person, one can have a relationship with the Supreme Soul. And I think the deepest message that I received from Sister Denise today is that the success of one's relationship with God depends on you and not on God. And she has shared various ways and means by which we can make this possible and doable in our daily lives. I do hope that your connection with God becomes strong and real. Take care. Goodbye.